This is your WWE Podcast Week in Review. Tonight, I've got Memphis Mark back after many months, too many months, of being absent from the show, and he's back to co-host with me tonight, talking about everything this week in WWE, at least the major stories, a history lesson or two, a few rants, and a whole lot of passion. So we're going to get everything going right after this. Are you looking for some relief or just need relief at the end of the day, but CBD just isn't cutting it? Try Delta 8 THC, CBD's older brother that actually works and makes you feel relaxed. Delta Munchies is revolutionizing the way you consume cannabis by skipping the dispensary and shipping straight to your door. Derived from 100% American-made hemp, and they come in a variety of products ranging from vapes, delicious gummies, tinctures, and more. So skip the line and find relief with Delta Munchies. Head to deltamunchies.com, that's deltamunchies.com, and use the code WWE20 for 20% off your order, guys. Head on over to deltamunchies.com and get 20% off your order by putting in the code WWE20, WWE20. You got to check out The Mentality Show. If you could be a fly on the wall and could hear how men think and really want to hear what goes on in the minds of everyday men, then you should check out The Mentality Show. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook Live. Real men, real talk. The Mentality Show. You can find them anywhere you stream podcasts and YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Just look up The Mentality Show.
This is WWE superstar Drew McIntyre, and you're listening to the WWE Podcast.
The one that everybody wants, me.
Becky Lynch is going to WrestleMania. Claymore!
Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass. This is my iron. You're going to acknowledge me.
Welcome, everybody, to the WWE Podcast. Really excited to be here with you guys tonight as we round out this week in review, and we come to you on this Sunday, May 22nd, 2022. We're, my God, nearly in June. How does this happen, right? I don't know. But I want to welcome everybody to the show, and specifically one of our newest patrons, Whisper in the Wind. So taking a cue from Jeff Hardy's moveset, and welcome Whisper in the Wind. Whisper in the Wind, which we'll get a real name shortly, will be joining us for a week in review in the near future. We're going to have several new co-hosts, as many of you are joining that $10 tier and higher on Patreon, which allows you to get onto the podcast and host a show with me. And many of you have took me up on that. So we're going to have many others join us here, different voices that you've never heard before from Patreon and other places. So that's a good thing, right? Diversity of voices on this show is good. You don't need to hear my monotone voice too much. And hopefully you're not operating heavy machinery when you're listening to me, because as I said before, many of you have told me that you fall asleep to my voice, which I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not. But you're listening, and that's the most important thing. So thank you for joining me here on the WWE Podcast. We did have a show that I just recorded with Memphis Mark. I actually just hung up with him on our Skype call, and the audio quality on his end is going to improve. I think he sounded fine, but he doesn't sound like I sound to you right now in terms of clarity and audio and volume, but I'm going to do the best I can to piece it together. He is still piecing together his little podcasting studio down there in Mullet Manor, so bear with us, but I think it's definitely listenable. But I wanted to let you know up front that yes, I am aware that his audio isn't 100% great, but definitely worth the listen, no doubt. So we have a great show coming for you guys tonight, about an hour and a half that we talked. And then tomorrow I'll be back with Anthony DeMarco as we discuss the current state of the WWE. Lots to discuss there. And then Tuesday's the weekend review, or rather the Monday Night Raw review. Guys, sorry, it's after midnight. My brain is functioning on like 10% capacity here. But we're going to be doing the Monday Night Raw review on Tuesday, the mailbag on Wednesday, and so forth as we get into your week. It's going to be your normal, regularly scheduled programming for this week in WWE. I'd encourage you to go VIP on our website. Use promo code ROMAN to get 50% off your first month. You can also join us on Apple Podcasts with your 99 cents a month option with ad-free everything, or on Patreon. Many of you have taken us up on that option. Patreon does offer hundreds of ad-free shows, Discord server, and a whole lot more, including a shout-out that you just heard coming on the show. There's merchandise. If you go in the higher tiers, there's mugs and T-shirts and things like that. So definitely consider patreon.com/WWE podcast for all of your wrestling needs. If you want to talk and really be able to talk with a really just a passionate wrestling community, Discord server is available. That link is available to everyone that signs up, no matter what the tier is. Also, last thing I'll say, I'm aware that during my interview, or my discussion, I should say, with Mark and others, that you hear the Discord little jingle going on in the background. I tried to close the damn thing. It would not close for me. I was aware that it was going off while I was talking to Memphis Mark. And I know you're going to hear Discord notifications, so I'm aware they're there. I don't mean for them to be, but I was frantically trying to close the damn app, but it would not close. I was about to chuck my computer out the window here, but I didn't. And so now, if you didn't hear it, that's what you're going to be listening for. And if you did hear it, at least you know that I acknowledged it. But all right, that's enough of my chatter. Let's get to Memphis Mark and myself talking about everything. Well, at least not everything, but the big ticket items going on this week in WWE. Of course, you're going to have history lessons with Memphis Mark. You don't expect anything less, but a lot of them are they're just so much fun to listen to. I don't want to say it's like story time with your grandparents, because I'm not trying to say that. I know that he's not quite that old as some of your grandparents, but it does kind of give that vibe, right? Like those of you who may not know somebody that is beyond your age that is a wrestling fan, I think that this is going to be a breath of fresh air as we bring in male voices, female voices, young and old, to talk about this week in WWE. That's what's great about this show, I think. So anyway, Mark, thank you for joining me, and I'll be looking forward to chatting with you on, Twitter, wherever. So thank you, everybody, for listening. I'll be back tomorrow night with Anthony DeMarco. Until then, take care, enjoy the show, and I'll see you next time. Welcome, everybody, to your WWE Podcast Week in Review. It is Sunday, May 22nd, 2022, and we've got somebody with us that hasn't been on in several months, but you know him. You've heard him in the weekly voicemails. Memphis Mark is back to join us to talk about everything going on in WWE, and welcome back to the show, buddy. How's everything over there at Mullet Manor?
Mullet Manor is progressing. We're building a studio. We're building a food forest in the backyard to become self-sufficient. We're really rock and rolling down here in the heart of where wrestling really started making money in Memphis, Tennessee. How's it going, Matt?
Well, that's good to hear, and it's going pretty well up here as well. We're separated by about 1,000 miles or so, but hey, summer's right around the corner. It was 95 degrees and humid as hell here today, so things are rocking and rolling. And wrestling really, I think, couldn't be hotter in some ways, not in all the good ways, but particularly, I want to pick your brain on something that happened over this past week that is behind the camera that some people are still calling a potential work. Now, I don't think that's the mainstream belief, but I've heard rumors here and there that the whole Sasha Naomi women's tag team title walkout was a work. I don't believe it to be so. But what are your thoughts on Sasha and Naomi and that whole deal with them walking out on WWE management?
Well, that is actually a great question, and I had actual notes on that, so I'm amazed that our minds met up like that, but I've got to take a different approach to this. I'm going to look at this as my opinion only, but if you were to be pissed off and you were to have the credibility to walk up to your boss and possibly say, I don't like this, and they tell you to hush, and you, because your husband maybe might be able to get a DUI and not get kicked off the WWE. I mean, that's a whole other show. But if you had that kind of clout, sometimes Now, this is according to my research. Sometimes the best angles become or are started by an angle. Like maybe they were pissed. And maybe somebody in creatives went, hey, look, I like this. Carry on. Piss them off. Maybe send somebody over there to get them a little riled up. Hey, there's an angle. That's writing, my friend.
It is, and I agree that a lot of times that a lot of things that are real life events, they can monetize them and turn them into a more embellished version of that on camera. But I do have my hesitations to believe that this is a angle of any kind, only because they had a lot of quote unquote, I guess, genuine news outlets that never report on wrestling ever, like the New York Post, right? Unless there's a death in wrestling, they never post on it. Other news sites as well. And I don't believe that they would have picked up the story if it was a wrestling angle. Those are not the Sports Ketas of the world and the Bleacher Reports of the world that report on almost everything, or Wrestling Inc. or whatever, tons of websites. You have many credible news outlets that just never report on wrestling unless there's something that's happening that's beyond the storyline stuff. So I just don't believe that would not be good press, because also the story going around is that they felt disrespected, that they felt that for a long time, and also that they felt unsafe with two of the workers in that 6-pack challenge that was supposed to take place on Raw. Again, none of that is good PR, especially considering that we all know the women's tag division has been a hot, total mess for a long period of time, and it doesn't sit right with me, given that I don't think they'd want that stuff out in the news that as real stories. So my take is I don't think it's a real or I don't think it's a work. I do believe it to be legitimate. Now, that's not to say they won't take it and turn it into something else, but the origins of this is real in my mind.
Well, now it definitely could be. Now, I could totally be wrong on this, but I'm just going by. This sounds like a classic work, especially since they're going against some old school writing in AEW, and these guys are pulling some stops out over there. And if you want to bring some attention to the ladies division, bring up the disgruntled worker. It's just a but. I totally see where you're going, my friend.
I do. And, I also thought about that, in Sasha and Naomi, who, it's actually more surprising, I think, for Naomi than Sasha, given that Sasha has hinted at the fact that she is not happy in WWE. She hinted at it during the Stone Cold Broken Skull Sessions podcast a number of months ago. And Naomi just kind of following suit. I don't know if she's just kind of following the bigger star and doing what Sasha's doing as well, and just kind of going with whatever Sasha wanted to do. When Naomi kind of had a nice little gig going on, she was more relevant in the last month or two than she was in like the last 6 to 12 months. It's a little bit strange that Naomi, I think, even more so than Sasha. Sasha is a made woman; she can go and do whatever she wants. Naomi, on the other hand, I think was a little bit more in the camp of needing WWE to continue her career. But so now we're gonna have a tournament. We'll decide who the next women's tag team title champions are. But I really don't know who's left in the division. They keep throwing people together to create the illusion of a division, and there isn't a division. I think they made that for WrestleMania. They threw 4 teams together that weren't in existence like a couple of weeks prior, and then all of a sudden, the 3 out of the 4 of those disappear 2 weeks after WrestleMania. I mean, there really is no women's tag team division. I would actually be more on the side of just completely eradicating the women's tag titles and doing away with it, just silently burying them until there's an actual division. I'm not a fan of having more championships just to try to make it look like they're on equal footing with the men, when in reality, they're not ready for a women's tag team division. That's how I feel anyway.
They haven't developed that talent out, but I will say this one thing. I want your opinion on this. Raquel. They built they did not know how to build China when they had China. And she was involved with Triple H, so she got caught up in that storyline. But in a OSHA correct world that we live in today, Raquel has the tools, has the freaking ability, I think, to be that big, to like put her up there with the men wrestlers in the future. Now a raw talent, but this I don't want to say this B is fat ass, man. I mean, she is she can do the moves, she can do everything, multi-language. She's a to me, as a promoter type person, that's a talent.
Yeah, Raquel she's a huge woman, and I mean that in a respectful way. I mean, she is a 6 foot. She's 6 feet. She feels like a giant in that division, and that is something that, I mean, when you look at her standing next to anybody, you're like, how tall is this woman? And she's not only tall, but got a very muscular, natural muscular frame, but not in a kind of, I guess, in a way that makes her look unnatural. It all fits, and she also has, she's pretty. I mean, so she's got all the tools.
She's new to the fitness program now, Matt.
Yeah.
Think about this. Think about her. Think about everybody. Look at Randy Orton when he started. He was a physical specimen. Great looking guy, everything. Once he got into that WWE program of the working out and pretty much keep your ass straight and narrow, and work out and on a regiment and have the trainers. This woman now, I'm telling you, on down the road, look, Omos has surprised me with the training that he's gotten. I mean, Omos, people compared him to Kevin Nash. I'm sorry, Omos to me is so far in front of what Kevin Nash was when he was standing behind Shawn Michaels, pulling up on his little glove, looking outside the ring. Omos is in the ring doing this. This girl is in the ring doing it, man.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, or some people try to draw that analogy, and I'm with you about Omos. I mean, I guess I'll transition there a little bit, because Omos this past week had a match a steel cage match, and with Bobby Lashley, and I thought that Omos continues to improve. And while I had my concerns at the beginning, given his size and his limitations, and you'd figure you would just see very limited selling, it would just be a lot of I'm going to work like a monster and not sell anything, and I'm just he's going to look stiff in the ring. He's looked anything but. I mean, he's not going to be doing 450 splashes off the top rope, but nor should he. But at the same time, he's looking, I think, very as good as you could expect him to look in the ring is how far Omos has progressed. He's clearly putting in the work behind the scenes in the Performance Center or wherever he's doing this, and it's showing, and not just in his maneuvers in the ring, but his selling overall, his facial expressions. He's not a polished performer yet, but he is, I think, way ahead of where I thought he would be. I had very low expectations for his in-ring ability just because of his size. So I really enjoyed the steel cage match. Now, I'm not a big fan of the steel cage match rules, as everyone knows. I mean, I just think that they're preposterous, that we're supposed to always believe. It's just, I'm sorry, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Like, we're always sold this bill of goods that, oh, well, hey guys, we're gonna get a steel cage match this week, and that means nobody's gonna be able to interfere. It's hilarious, but it's also insulting to my intelligence. And it makes
interfering since 1955.
Yeah. Yes, it's insanity, and
chains through the fence, everything. I mean, yes. But
go ahead,
Matt. What about though AEW, or is it World Class? No, it's World Class. It's got this monster guy that they're building up over there, and then. I saw another big guy. I have to say, of all the new big guys out there that I'm seeing, And I know you don't have a lot of time to go around and look at a lot of these guys, but I'm talking about guys 7 foot right now of relevance in wrestling. Omos, I think, has the most upside, sellability, and reality. But now they're bringing these basketball players in. And back in the day, they brought football players in. And all they knew how to do was go boom, boom, knock the hell out of each other. They're bringing these 6'10", 7 foot tall basketball guys. And these guys know how to move. And if you teach them, if you give them a good instructor and time, well, I think we're going to another big guy stage coming up in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, Vince loves himself some big guys. I mean, that's been Vince's MO since the beginning, and that hasn't changed even at 78 years old or whatever he is. I mean, he is always and has always been, and I think will continue to be until he's in the ground, a guy that is enamored with the large men, whether it's bodybuilding types or just straight up height. And I understand why. It's marketing, it's all that, and the larger than life attitude, all that stuff. I get it.
If you're in the 75th row and a guy 6'10" throws somebody, it looks a lot different. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Than a 5'10" guy. Macho Man was great. I mean, Macho Man, awesome. I mean, all-time great. But unfortunately, I have to say, Kevin Nash throwing somebody, if you're sitting in nosebleeds, looks far more impressive. You know what I mean by that. But I'm 6'3", and I used to see the wrestlers come in my bar, and I loved them, but when you saw them come in and they were 5'7" and 5'6" and 5'8", it hurt your heart. But when you saw somebody like a Scott Steiner or even Flair at 5'10", 5'11", they were larger than life, man. They were like spotlights coming in. So, I mean, these big guys coming into this, if they can get one guy to have half the flair of Flair, or something like that, they've got $1 million product, T-shirts and everything else.
I got to say, I feel personally attacked. I mean, I'm 5'8", right? So like now I know that my future will never consist of an in-ring career. Let me just say that. No, I'm seriously, I'm long past that. But Matt, the one time I was knocked out in a ring was by a 5'8", 230-pound plumber. I'd gone 9 fights undefeated. And they used to have these things in PKA, Professional Karate Association. They had these things called Tough Guy Contest in Jackson, Tennessee. I beat a guy for half to death for 2 rounds, 5'8". I finally let my guard down. He hit me so hard, and I don't know if you know, like sitting on your hand where your hand goes numb. That 5'8" man made my whole body feel like my hand that day. And I learned respect for every human being that walks this earth, my friend. Never underestimate anybody that walks down the street. You never know. People look at size and go, "Oh, you could kick his ass." Or I'm like, size it matters, but it doesn't really matter. It's because size is only just the perception that you can fight well. It oftentimes doesn't mean you can, because your size can limit you with a lot of times speed that doesn't come with that size, which speed I think is one of the most important things.
Yeah.
So
6'3", 260 here, man.
Yeah.
And I'm scared to death of anybody that walks by me. Now, don't put me wrong. Don't take my kindness to weakness.
Sure.
I will throw you. I've thrown a 175-pound man 9 feet. That is, we've done that once, and I won't even go. That's another show. But I'm just telling you, I'm scared to death of everybody that walks by me. I pay respect. I pray every night that the good Lord gives me a chance to wake up in the morning. But you better not underestimate, because you don't know who the hell you're dealing with.
No idea. Although I'm sure once you get people with the liquid courage, everybody can fight like, Chuck Norris. I mean, everybody thinks that they, can take on the world as I'm sure you know.
Years.
Yeah.
35 years in the bar business.
I'm sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody's the best fighter in the world when they're drunk.
Everybody's got a plan until they get smacked upside the head.
I know Tyson said that, but it's the truest thing I've ever heard. I mean,
I've been saying it since 77, my friend.
Well, there you go. It's the truest thing, because it's like, oh, well, I would do this and this, and then you get hit in the face and everything goes out the effing window, and it's just you're back from scratch. You don't know what the hell to do. It's that one. It's
I stole that from Tojo Yamamoto.
Yep.
Tojo Yamamoto. He was 5'4". He scared the daylights out of me, and I was 17. 6'3", 210 pounds at the time, solid muscle. This little Oriental man scared the daylights out of me, but he was a great guy. He was a great guy. God bless his soul. Great wrestler, Tojo Yamamoto. Go look him up.
All right. Yeah, no, I actually have never heard of him. I really haven't. So, yeah, all right. Well, there you go. All right. Well, let's talk about the unification match. Probably the biggest in front of the camera story, the storyline that is supposed to be a storyline with the Usos and RK Bro. They built this match seemingly for 2 months now, because it got kicked off of the Backlash show and replaced with the 6-man tag with Roman and Drew. But now we finally get it, and we got it this past week on SmackDown a couple of days ago, and we actually got a clean finish. I couldn't believe it. I thought it was going to be a schmoz finish where Roman interferes, and he did interfere, but in a way that caused a DQ and this match to continue to Hell in a Cell. But no, in fact, this match had a winner and a loser that resulted in a tag team championship unification, and the Usos get the victory and are now the unified tag team champions. So what do you think about this?
I'm going to tell you what, my personal opinion, I don't care what anybody thinks. This is some old school writing. I don't know if Pritchard or I don't know who they have on their creative team now, because everything's been moved around. But I'm going to tell you, this is some old school writing. They spooled us in. They brought us in that this wasn't going to happen. This wasn't going to happen. It would be just like them having an event somewhere and a wrestler didn't show. So, we got to reschedule. How can we rewrite the line? They just everything. It's like pulling that fish hook out in the water and watching it come through, and you know that the fish is about to bite, so you pull it ahead of time just to taunt the fish. And that's what they did to us. And I think it was great. I think the match was awesome. I think the Usos, they have proven to me over a period of time. You can say what you want to about everybody else. Right now, these young men are at the top of their game. If you can get in trouble in the WWE and you don't get fired, you're drawing money. That's the way I look at it. And man, look, the classic ending with Roman, I mean, everything. Now the flop on the table. Do you remember when Riddle went on the table and they were about to do that? That was almost as bad as the AEW guy that used to be with the John Morrison when he was trying to guide Keith Lee onto the table. I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but that was the most ridiculous thing I've seen in years. But Bro getting on that table and kind of being slow about it and letting them go, that was the worst thing I have to say about that match. Then I should shut up.
Well, that was after the match, to be fair, right? That was the post-match beatdown. Right?
Oh, okay, you're right.
So,
you're correct. My bad.
I mean, it was still on camera. It still happened, but I guess being technical, it wasn't part of the match. But yeah, I mean, I hear you there. I mean, to me, that was something I noticed, but it wasn't enough for me to take away from, I think, the bigger picture here of like, okay, the Bloodline now has all the gold minus, I mean, if you're going to count all the gold, meaning U.S. and Intercontinental, I don't think that they're going to capture those. They could, but I don't think so. So if they essentially have all the gold beyond those two belts, and now they're at the top of the mountain. And to me, whenever I see this kind of thing happen with any group, when they're at the top of the mountain, guess which way the only way you can go is, right? Like down. There's no other way to go because you have all the gold. So to me, this could be the apex of the bloodline until we see a slow descent, or it could fall off a cliff with the Usos losing the belts, and maybe Roman loses his belt or one of his belts or both. They still haven't told us how they're going to defend that championship. Are they going to defend Roman's championship as a single championship, as two? They said it's a unified championship, yet there's still two belts. I mean, who knows yet? We still haven't got that clarified. But do you think that with the bloodline now having all the gold, that this is a sign that they've reached the apex and that they're on they have only one way to go? Or do you think that they're going to hang out here for a while?
Oh man, if you really look at this is a promoter's dream, because you can go, you have two sets of tag team titles, so you've got 8 belts there, and you've got and I sure as hell hope I don't do a Scott Steiner adding thing, but you've got Roman with 2 titles, so they could literally just throw an event here, and just throw it out there and give him his time off, and then let the Usos build the story up and let everybody else grovel to the top to try to get to him. But one thing I will add on what we were talking about, they haven't used Roman to run out and do the dirty work. And he ran out and did the dirty work for the Usos. I think that was a little different. And I was kind of happy that they actually added that into his storyline. Now, that's my opinion on that. What do you think on that?
And that's a good point, because last week I remember bringing up the fact that for the first time, it's as if Roman has taken a bit of a back seat to what's going on, since Drew McIntyre is off doing promotional work. I would imagine for Clash at the Castle, which is taking place in the UK for the first time in like 30 years, 40 years. I don't know.
Let's talk about that in a second, but please go on.
Yeah. So we'll talk about that next. But So I think that having Roman take a bit of a back seat is a good thing. Not only does it allow fans to take a small breather from him every single week with the same formula, where Roman is the star of the show, the entire show is built around whoever Roman's feuding with, and instead this tag team title unification match has been something I think the fans have legitimately been looking forward to, and I think it delivered. And I can't remember a time where, at least in recent memory, I know there's some good examples out there of Evolution. I don't know if you'd call them a tag team, or D-Generation X. They had kind of the Freebird rules at times, but I think that in recent memory, especially for newer fans, this is the most relevant that the tag titles have been in a long time, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. I agree with that totally. And actually, I hadn't thought of it that way, to tell you the truth. It has brought relevance back to the tag team belts. And when I was growing up, it was the same thing. We had a stigma. You had good tag teams. They you get so much talent in one area, they got to put them together to get all the cards right and get them out in front of the fans. But you'd had like a group like you just happened to mention off the cuff, the Freebirds, the fabulous Freebirds. They were just an enigma to themselves. RK Bro is going into that kind of status to where the Freebirds walked out and everybody held up, which I'm a proud Southerner, but I do not agree with the flag. But anyway, anybody would hold their stuff up. They do all their crap. Well, now you've got RK Bro coming out there, and maybe you might have some deadheads, or maybe some 420, mentions, which is unheard of in wrestling, in WWF or WWE, wrestling 5 years ago. Unheard of. And then for 10 years after Chris Benoit, God bless his soul, and I won't even go into that. But it was such a touchy subject. So look at what the hell the tag team has started. They've created a whole nother, era.
Do you think this is the end of the road for RK Bro? I mean, I still believe that at the Hell in a Cell event, which is just a couple of weeks away, that we'll probably see a rematch with these two, maybe inside Hell in a Cell. If not inside the cell, some rematch of some sort. I think at Hell in a Cell, these four men are just too good not to put back together and have them get their rematch. But I think after Hell in a Cell, I would imagine, regardless, you're still going to have RK Bro lose and remain, or have the Usos remain the unified tag champions. Do you think this is the beginning of the end of RK Bro?
Stay right there. The WWE podcast will return after this quick break.
You got to check out The Mentality Show. If you could be a fly on the wall and could hear how men think and really want to hear what goes on in the minds of everyday men, then you should check out The Mentality Show. Every Wednesday at 6 p.m. on YouTube and Facebook Live. Real men, real talk. The Mentality Show. You can find them anywhere you stream podcasts and YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Just look up The Mentality Show.
Welcome back to the WWE podcast. Let's get back to more great wrestling audio.
Well, I think since they started, it was the beginning of the end. I think they didn't expect this to go. My personal opinion, I didn't think they expected this to go like it did, and it has taken on and taken off. And I think that if they were writers, they may have had everything set up to one point until Riddle said, 420, we smoked your ass. Well, that is freaking T-shirt sales and merchandise sales freaking out. So now if you're a writer, all right, just think of this. You've got everything lined up to a pay-per-view. And then one freaking guy says one word like,
what? No.
and then now we got to rewrite every freaking thing, and we can't break this team up yet. So now we've got to make it. Now that is, as I said, that's my opinion because I'm a business guy. I look at everything on an angle of being from my time with wrestlers, old school wrestlers that didn't have these contracts that they have on T-shirts and everything now. And the way it's been explained to me, and I want to do one mention, Matt, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Mr. Dutch Mantel, absolute great wrestler, fantastic wrestler, and a promoter all through the regions. He has taught me so much on the inside of wrestling, and he is somebody that I can kind of send a little message to, and when he feels like it, because he's retired, and he don't just automatically answer you. But if he feels like it, he'll tell you his opinion on things, and his opinion, you know what I mean, it seems to ring true. But I will have to say, RK Bro, with these T-shirt sales, this merchandise sales, this could drag on. Hey, look, I hate to say it now. I mean, I like RK Bro, but I make one freaking main example, and that would be Kofi Kingston. and I will stop there. That group is all three of those guys are great wrestlers, everything great, but those T-shirts sell. And you know, and they put on good matches.
They do.
They
do, and they have not. I don't think they've had a hotter tag team in. I mean, I really don't know the last time that they've had a team like this. That, like you said, it was not meant to continue. They've been. It was a a pairing that was meant to end, I think, at last year's SummerSlam that all of us thought.
Absolutely.
And it kept going. It kept going and kept going. And I'm waiting for the RKO to drop or somebody to do something, a Riddle to turn heel.
And they did it. I mean, if my memory serves me right, didn't Orton hit him with an RKO at the start? And it created that doubt how long this would last. And then they all went to, at the end of a weekend in Texas where they played 4 cities, they went back and they added up the numbers and they went, hello, RK Bro.
Yep.
We love RK Bro.
It's right. And I do wonder, with your mention about the 420, we just smoked your ass. Here's the thing with that. I think it's going to catch fire. But I think that they're trying to do a bit of a test from a merchandise and sales perspective. How much momentum does this have? Because you're right. I think it will catch, but it's not automatic, right?
Go, Matt. Go.
Yeah.
Go, Matt.
It's not automatic. I mean, it is one of those things that I don't know if they ahead of time thought that it's gonna be on a T-shirt. I don't think so. It might have been a spur of the moment type of
the barometer.
Yes,
the barometer. They're trying to figure the barometer out on this because like anything else, if they think that they can just jump on it and nobody's going to say anything, they'll dive. There'll be freaking kids' toys out there going 420 and everything. And look, I actually am a
connoisseur.
A connoisseur. I have Parkinson's, and I could not function day to day that if I did not use this drug. So I promote it. Well, let's put it this way. I respectfully promote, and everybody's opinion is their own, and God bless everybody's opinion. This is a great country that we live in, and we can choose by that. But I am glad that the younger generation, that my generation is not in charge as much anymore, and a younger generation has come in and has created a conversation. And I'll leave it at that. We won't make this into anything like that. But God bless America.
Well, it's becoming I'm in New York State, and it took us for a long time to legalize it. And it's something that is being, I think, more and more accepted across the United States. It's being legalized slowly from state to state. So it's not something that's looked at anymore as, it's a big gateway drug. It's this and that. Of course you have to respect it for what it is. Just like if you abuse anything, cigarettes, alcohol, things that have been around forever, and no matter what you use, you need to use it respectfully and understand the power that it has. And so tying it back to wrestling, I think it has the potential to create much more money than it would have even say 5 years ago because of the acceptance it's gotten over the last just few years from a legal and societal perspective. So yeah, I do think that WWE is going to sit back and go, okay, let's look at the numbers here. We're ready to break them up and get them ready for SummerSlam, but should we do it? From a money standpoint, are things going to start flooding in? Because I saw Randy Orton this week. He had a 420 RK Bro sweatshirt on.
Yep.
So I looked. I'm like, okay, they've already marketed that. They've already got it on a T-shirt and sweatshirts.
Oh, they're going.
Yeah,
they're going full into it. And one thing, what is it? Van Dam. Back in the day, Van Dam was promoting hemp and doing things, and it got him kind of outlawed in a lot of Rob Van Dam, excuse me, but it got him kind of outlawed in certain areas in the Bible Belt. But until they needed a bad guy, of course. But anyway, it got him kind of barred in certain areas. And he was a great talent. He was a great talent now. Sometimes he didn't show, but, I mean, he was a great talent. And that was the stigma that went along with that. back in the day. But anyway, how about them freaking Usos finishing this off and winning the freaking championship? And I have to be honest, that should have been the ending. My opinion, that should have been the ending. And they should have won it by just like it ended, man. Freaking Roman laying in the side, being knocked off the ring, kind of smiling, and knowing that Bloodline is forever. I mean, that's a pretty strong statement, in my opinion.
Yeah, it is. I have, and I didn't hate the way that the match ended. I thought that it was fine. I thought it was good, and I understand what you're saying, and I think that there's an element of truth there, but I wouldn't have probably changed anything, only because what they tried and set out to do, they achieved. They got the Usos the belts. The crowd went along with it. That's the most important thing. The crowd was booing this. The Roman got more heat for being the guy to come in and be the one to cause the Usos to win. And also it made sense because Riddle kneed him in the face the week before. You knew that he was going to get his receipt, and he did. So I think that really... Well, exactly. And there's nothing better than when it's just easy to understand and follow. People love these some people love these convoluted, deep, in-depth spiderweb storylines. I don't. Number one, I don't think they're really capable of it right now in WWE because they can't see the hand in front of their face with a lot of the storylines. I mean, let's just be honest. But I think sometimes...
Preach again, Matt.
It's true. I mean, for real. The problem is, this is, again, a whole different podcast, and I'm sure if you ever talk to Dutch Mantel or whoever, that they could probably give you chapter and verse about this kind of stuff much more than I could. But I just think a lot of times simpler is better. And it's not to say the IQ of wrestling fans is any lower than anybody else that watches any other form of entertainment. But when you're watching a TV show, whether you're watching whatever on Netflix or Hulu or whatever, we don't sit there and go, man, at the end of the day, after working all day for most of us, unless you're retired, you want to just relax and turn your brain off. And I don't want to have to sit and think too hard. I mean, most of us like that, unless you're reading a book or whatever. Like, you don't want to have to sit and try to dissect and look and dig and think and go, because they're not doing that. Why should you? To me, it's just simple, easy to understand. You can have some depth, but don't make it too difficult where you're booking yourself into a corner and then you can't explain it to your audience. So I don't know. I went on a bit of a rant there, but to me, a lot of times simpler is better.
Man, I hope I haven't totally taken the show off of the point that it was, but I think we are both ranting. And we're on the same page, but we're both ranting right now that we're pissed off that things could be better.
They always can be, though. I mean, there's even during the Attitude
Don't
Era.
ask my wife that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, same here.
I've been married 5 times, brother, and like Booker T says, 5 times. I won't go. Look, I love my wife. and I love this discussion that we have here tonight because I don't need a divorce off this show.
No. I don't want to be your excuse for number 6, please. No.
No. She is so into me getting Mullet Manor Studio going together, and she actually said you need to create a name for a show. And I was like, whatever you say, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Yeah. I've got a history show I'm doing, and if anybody's got some great show names, you're more than welcome to throw them out there. I'd like Memphis Mark somehow included, but it doesn't have to be.
No, it's a very catchy name. I mean, it's very, it flows, it makes sense. I think Memphis Mark should be in something that you do, like, with the title of the show with Memphis Mark or something. Memphis Mark hosts. Well, I don't know, something.
It's so funny that my wife said, wait a minute, let me write this because she is in the other room and she's going to hear this. But it was wrestling with the Truth, hosted by Memphis Mark.
I like that. Well, isn't that, hold on. I think that's, I'm not trying to say you stole this from anything, but I'm looking at, it's hilarious you say that because I have the book from Shawn Michaels that he wrote, his latest book, I don't know, maybe 8-10 years ago.
Tell me. I don't know.
It's called, hold on, I think it is Wrestling with the Truth. I'm almost positive. I can't see it.
I'm stealing somebody.
I'm fairly sure it's Shawn Michaels, the title of his book.
Okay, all right. So X-Nay, I don't want to mess with Shawn Michaels' lawyers. I apologize for even mentioning his name. We here at the WWE podcast want no problems with any lawyers. We are happy to say sorry.
Yeah, we'll take a pass on that. I mean, like, you can double check on that because I can't see it across the room from where I'm at right now. But I'm 95% sure it's Wrestling with the Truth by Shawn Michaels.
My wife did think of that totally on her own, and she had no idea of his meaning. So. Hey, maybe
you can compliment her. If Shawn Michaels came up with it and she came up with it, that's a pretty high compliment. So,
hey, man, you're making me look good here, brother. Come on, keep talking, young man. Help me as an older, going towards 60-year-old man, trying to keep a marriage alive. So, you got any more tips?
I'm 7 years in and 2 kids that are young, and there's nothing that'll strain a marriage more than that. So I'm I'm looking for tips, right? So to me, giving them out, I don't think I'm in any position, right? So
right.
Yeah, young
wait
kids.
Wait a minute. We're supposed to be talking wrestling.
Yeah,
here.
What the hell? All right. So Clash at the Castle. I know you wanted to talk about this. So. What are your thoughts on after 30 years, more than 30 years, WWE returning to the UK?
Okay, this is my total opinion of this, and I've been preaching this for a little while. People keep wondering, they keep throwing Drew McIntyre out. They keep throwing him in the storyline. Why is he's a great wrestler, but why do they keep throwing him in? Well, they were keeping him relevant for the European tour. And man, when he made his first appearance in, it wasn't Wales, it wasn't in the city, I don't believe, I could be wrong, but they sold 18,000 seats the first freaking day he was there. He's on a tour. Every day he's selling, I'm going to modestly say 10,000 tickets a day. All right, I want to speak of this, and this is personally bothering me. I spoke with another host on our show, Mr. Casual Wrestling Fan. He lives in the snobby city of Nashville, Tennessee, and I live in Memphis, Tennessee, the armpit of Tennessee. And we were talking about possibly getting together and going to a wrestling event. All right, to get the seats that I want. And Matt, please edit this at any time when I go long. But to get the seats that I want in Nashville are $7,800.
What? $7,800?
I'm not a broke man, but I ain't that man. You know, I mean, 70 at StubHub. Go check it. I ain't spitting no freaking shit here. I'm telling the truth. All right. So I look at Memphis. Same seats. Memphis. $5,800.
What?
All right. This upcoming event in Little Rock, $530 for the badass seats. I'm not paying $500 myself, but $500 in Little Rock.
Wait, now, I mean, in a lot of places, it probably costs you $500 just to get there in gas with the prices these days. But I think I don't understand when you say badass seats. You're talking. I would imagine
Third row. Oh,
you're not even
on camera.
On camera, third row. No, yeah, those are badass seats. Okay. I mean, but okay. So for SummerSlam in Nashville, they want 7,800. In Memphis, they want 5,800 for what show is coming there? What show is coming?
It's. I checked. I here's what I did. I went on Nashville and I checked the seats there. And when I say those seats, if any listener wants to check me, I think I'm very low on those seats. And then Memphis was, I think, the number that I mentioned in Nashville for the next event coming up, or either the last one that was here. I may be wrong. Please excuse me, because I was trying to be very good for all of our listeners and for my one chance on this air. And I wrote so many freaking notes that I don't know where I'm at on those. So, but as far as these prices go, it is absolutely ridiculous that I could drive to Little Rock, and that's a beautiful city. I ain't got nothing wrong. I got friends all around there I can go see and go stay, and there ain't nothing wrong. Hot Springs is fabulous. But I can go there for $2,000. I can sit ringside and get a hotel room for two people in Little Rock. But if I go to Nashville, my sister city, an hour and a half, or not even an hour and a half up the road from me, I got to pay a small used car to get a freaking seat. I can't take my family. I can't. Now, some people can now, but I can't. I think that's ridiculous. And I hate to go into a rant on this. But you got to understand my demographic. Memphis to Nashville, 2 hours, and I'm a little outside of Memphis, so I'm a little less than that. I got to drive 2.5 hours to Little Rock. I can save $3,000 to $5,000 and take my family to an event.
I mean, are the Beatles and the Rolling Stones doing a dual concert? I mean, to me, that is that's to most people, I would think that is completely unreachable, unless you again, there are a lot of people that have the money to do it and they do it and wouldn't think twice. But I think that disqualifies 98% of people that would want to go.
Me.
Yeah, that's I've never, even for WrestleMania, sometimes the prices don't go that high. I've seen WrestleMania tickets that are pretty badass that don't go that high. I mean, I've seen 4,000, 5,000, and okay, but $7,800 for a SummerSlam that is not guaranteed to be great.
And actually, my wife is showing a picture to me that it was 8,600. So
I can't.
I'm just putting this out there that I love wrestling. I love wrestling. And I've been involved in one way or the other, being a fan or being a person serving a alcoholic beverage or throwing a wrestler out of a place most of my life. I've been given free tickets and gotten in events that and stood backstage. Eddie Gilbert, there's so many things I could say. But when I planned on trying to take Mr. Casual Wrestling Fan said, if you can get some deal on tickets, holler at me. I go check my broker, and he tells me these prices, and I was like, no. I'm sorry. Maybe I don't need to sit front row. I'm saying maybe 5-6 rows back. And he was like, that's 17 rows back. And I haven't even contacted Memphis or Casual Wrestling Fan and let him know that I apologize, that I am totally out of this realm. And I think he is in the same boat that I am. He would like to take his family to an event And that's just pricing an event out of normal people's range. And that is what I'm scared of in wrestling, that they're going to overprice this stuff, to where I can't take 4 or 5. I want to take people that have never been to wrestling or maybe have only gone when they're young. I like to take somebody like that and take them in and say, this is what's about to happen. And maybe I might know a few moves ahead. And I want to introduce them to wrestling, but they're kind of making it hard, Matt.
Yeah, well, they're making it difficult because the person that's going is going to say, well, how much were these tickets? And you're like, yeah, it was about $5,800 for this ticket. And they're going to say, well, this is the first and last time I'm coming. I'm not going to be able to bring my family. I'm not going to be able to afford to come and bring, my kids to this event. Unless, of course, they're up in the cheap seats, which then they're, much more reasonable. But I really can't believe. Again, these are resale though value. This isn't, face value. These aren't like when you buy it from Ticketmaster.
StubHub.
Yeah, which are all, if I'm correct, I think those are all like secondhand after somebody's purchased it from Ticketmaster or directly from the arena.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
so it's not WWE. It's the fans that are buying these tickets.
Venue.
Yeah.
The venue.
Mm-hmm.
And in Memphis, we have a no compete clause, and this is how sad we got screwed in Memphis. They built the FedEx Forum for the Grizzlies, and they said that no act can come in unless we decide that they can come in. So what was smartly done by people like me and you, if we had hit a lottery ticket, Matt, we would have built a arena right outside of Memphis, which people did. And it has made them millionaires because they can play right outside of Memphis. Like the Eagles can play in Memphis, but say AC/DC might want to not give the FedEx Forum all their money, and they want the money, so they play in South Haven, which is 30 minutes outside of Memphis. And wrestling has done that in the past too. WWE has come into the FedEx Forum, but at first FedEx Forum showed their ass, and WWE went into the Landers Center, which is right outside of Memphis, and said pretty much you're going to abide by our rules. And they're one of the few companies that has gotten past that no compete clause. But these arenas, these NBA arenas, NFL arenas, they're going to have to adjust to the WWE over the next few years because WWE is not going anywhere. And this is a draw. And they are powerful enough to go into a city like Memphis that has only one NBA team or only one professional team. Nashville, you've got tons of them. So Nashville gets overrun by this stuff. But Memphis should be an affordable city, but it's not. But there again, that's my rant for the night, Matt. I'm sorry.
No. All good information that I know that most of us didn't know about. And we all know where Nashville is and what it brings to the table. I got to say, being someone that is just outside looking in on the Nashville phenomenon, it's not just WWE.
Vegas.
It's exploded over the last few years. I don't know what it is. If it's the I don't know what you call it, the strip, whatever the main area is where all the bars and everything are. I don't know what you call it. Never been there yet. But whatever that is, I
come to Nashville. I'm a much better host than a casual wrestling fan.
Oh, you got called out. All right. Oh, you got called out, casual wrestling fan. But there is some kind of fascination with it. I don't know. I'd imagine it's not just country music. I think it's it's a trendy thing, a trendy place to be right now. Every time I turn around, I see somebody in Nashville, somebody at a bar in Nashville. I don't know what the attraction is. I'm not saying it's not a fun place to be, but I don't know what it is. It's like the number one destination I see people going to is Nashville, and just to get drunk, so, but anyway, so circling back to pro wrestling here, as we often go off is, we talked about a little bit about Clash at the Castle. Do you have anything else to follow up on Clash before we, because we don't even know the main event yet. I would imagine Roman Reigns is in that main event, probably against Drew McIntyre, but that's speculation. But did you have anything else before we get back to the current product?
I just think that they are I think that the WWE sometimes surpasses the average wrestling fan's knowledge when they are looking at the overall picture. Like, we look at why are they pushing Drew, or why is Sheamus in this spot, or is Mustafa, or just all these different opinions. We just sometimes think, where is that going? And then we see the European tour, and they pack stadiums, and it's a whole different show. It's a whole different writing, I think, over there, and they do it smartly to what is popular there. So I think we're getting ready to take the European tour, so it'll change. The writing will change over there. Then it comes back to America, and they go to, they dumb it down a little bit, I believe. I hate to say it, but they do.
Yeah, that's very possible. I think if I was in the UK, that I would be looking at this as like my WrestleMania. And I think WWE is going to make this a massive event because it is the first time in 30 years. I don't know. Again, the card, I've speculated in the main event, but I don't know. But if I was a fan over there, I would imagine that they are looking at this as an absolute, just this is their WrestleMania, because there have been so much chatter over the last how many years? I can't even, since I've been a wrestling fan.
COVID.
Well, COVID, and people have been asking for actual WrestleMania to be overseas for how long? And while this isn't WrestleMania, I think a lot of people it's kind of like their de facto WrestleMania over there.
Absolutely. I mean, can you imagine having a product that you are making this amount of money here, and then there is a clamoring audience across the water, across the pond, that is asking for it, and you got to look at it this way. Everybody goes, well, yeah, you can just go over and throw a show. Well, the prices now out there on logistics, on setting everything up, you have to use union workers, and unfortunately, I have to say, I was a union worker for years in the setting up stages and stuff. So I got to see the inside of this. They can't do anything without union workers. And then especially in Europe, that is so strong. So it is a major ordeal to set it up. You have to set up your whole show, and then your whole tour. And then you have to go to a group of small guys with college degrees in a small room and lay it all out to them, and they tell you if you can do it or not. I mean, ain't that some shit? I mean, ain't that some stuff? Mm-hmm. That you set everything up, and it comes down to a few guys in a room that says that, yeah, you can do it or you can't.
That makes sense. That it's such, there's been, and I've thought about it. I'm like, as a United States citizen, I'm like, I don't really particularly care, nor would I be offended if they decided to do it overseas in another country. But I'm always thinking to myself that there's got to be reasons that they haven't done it. Is it time zone problems that maybe their main audience or their foundation audience in the United States wouldn't be able to view it while it's live in London or wherever? But I mean, the union problem does make much more sense. It's probably a much more costly, like you just said. One of the reasons in a foreign or national, international country to promote the show, to get those workers, to fly everybody there. Everything is more expensive to bring it over there, and they have to decide for themselves if it's worth the bang for their buck. And I guess that they've decided it is for at least the one time here. So. All right, let's continue on, though. I want to ask you a little bit more about what's going on in WWE that we haven't discussed yet. And looking at things here, I mean, we talked a little bit about the women's division, but in Raw, we have Asuka, after the whole dilemma with Sasha and Naomi that they talked about. They're not in the six-pack challenge. But then at the main event of Raw, we get we get Asuka and Becky Lynch in a one-on-one match that I thought was really good. That person, if whoever wins, would get an opportunity at Bianca Belair for her Raw Women's Championship. Asuka ends up getting the victory after the green mist, but it was only because that Becky Lynch was about to use her umbrella. And so anyway, Asuka gets the victory and is going to face Bianca Belair at the pay-per-view. So what do you take? What's your take on kind of just the Raw Women's division as a whole, though?
Well, I will say this much. As a personal opinion from my family, I want to get Becky Lynch a good old bologna and ham sandwich. I think she needs a little weight on it, but that's just a Southerner in me. But Asuka is such a freaking amazing talent, and I'm not sure of these of her vocal skills being far better than she puts on, and if they are. And they haven't let her be that way. Shame on the WWE, but that's another show. But Asuka is an amazing talent, and it's kind of like Shinsuke. I don't know if these guys know how to use Japanese talent. These guys are they're charismatic. They're fantastic. They sell T-shirts. They freaking have little girls and boys screaming and hollering for them. They're everything, but somehow the writing just doesn't work out for them. And in AEW, Matt, I don't know how much time you get to watch them, but they're doing a far better job. They just brought this young kid in that I knew nothing about until I saw his match and did some research. And I don't know his name, so I won't try to pronounce it. But he did a hell of a match, did a hell of a show, and they promoted it in the ring. I just think WWE is dropping the ball on that.
Well, I think WWE's had a history of not knowing what to do with their Japanese stars. I mean, the Shinsuke Nakamura debacle, I mean, he was Intercontinental Champion for 6 months and they ignored him as Intercontinental Champion. Like, they didn't do anything with him at all. I mean, it was to the point where I think it actually hurt the Intercontinental Championship itself, not just Shinsuke.
Agreed.
No blame on Shinsuke at all. All the blame on that falls on WWE creative Vince, who have just decided that for whatever reason they hid the Intercontinental Championship with Shinsuke, and then they just had him go, in hibernation for 6 months, and it made no sense. You could say the same thing for Asuka a year prior when she was Raw Women's Champion, and it had to have been 6 to 8 months. That's no exaggeration, where she just was not defending the belt or not on Raw or whatever. I think it was just prior to COVID. They did almost nothing with her, and it was absolutely just atrocious the way that they, handled her. Now, was it a coincidence both are Japanese stars? I don't know. I mean, maybe not. I think there's something there, but having them not maybe give us the full ability of the English language, which I speculated too, that it seems like they probably know more. People have told me that they do live streams on Instagram or whatever, and they can speak better English, and particularly Asuka knows more English than she's letting on camera, which I think is a bad thing to do. If you're not gonna, why would you not want to be able to communicate with your audience? Now, Asuka inside the ring, world-class talent. She has a gimmick that is, no one quite knows what it is, but she's she's a walking cartoon character that it's kind of a deodorant for not really understanding what she is. Like, no one could explain what Asuka is, but she's so charismatic, and she's a walking cartoon character with her facial expressions, everything else, that it works because your eyes are glued to the TV screen because she's so just completely rambunctious. Like, she's just so out there, and with her movements and everything else. But I just don't understand, if she can speak better English, why would you not want to have her showcase that on screen beyond the few words that she is allowed to say, which is, you aren't ready for Asuka. Beyond, she knows more than that. And so I would shame on WWE if they do know and they just decided to not utilize that. But as far as the Raw Women's division goes, I mean, I have my concerns about Bianca Belair's run right now. I think she's an extraordinary talent, but she's been kind of quiet lately. I think Becky Lynch, in her haircut, is doing extraordinary work. She seems to know when to change her character. I think she knows
when.
Yeah, she
needs a sample.
Yes, exactly. So. So I'll stop there, but overall, I think that right now Bianca Belair probably isn't going to drop that championship at the Hell in a Cell event. I very much doubt it, but I could also see this being turned into some kind of triple threat with Becky Lynch and Asuka challenging Sasha Banks. I keep wanting to say Sasha with Bianca Belair. So that to me would be a world-class triple threat main event for sure with those three women.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're world class, but I mean, they're just not using the Japanese talent the way they should, and I hate to put it as a narrative like that, but I mean, I'm looking at AEW and I'm looking at what WWE is doing now, and I have to say I disagree with WWE, but I'm also sitting at Mullet Manor in a humble home, and they're sitting in big palatial mansions. So what do I know?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, we're and that's the thing, right? Like, no matter what we comment on or what we have an opinion on, it's always from a kind of a very high level view where we're always on the outside looking in. And I saw a hashtag trending today of "I stand with Sasha and Naomi," and I'm thinking to myself, well, why? Like, just because? Is it your assumptions that are drawing you to that? It has to be assumptions that they did no wrong. It was all the evil WWE and Vince McMahon. And there are, I would imagine, just like with any situation, whether it's a divorce, a breakup, just somebody quitting their job, which is kind of what we saw with Sasha and Naomi, even though they're just indefinitely suspended. There's
one hell of a creative line.
There's always there's very rarely, I should say, a clear-cut good guy and a bad guy. There's usually blame to give on both sides.
Yes, sir.
People that are saying, "I stand with Sasha and Naomi," and they just blindly say this, well, we don't know the full story. All we see are the events that led to the walkout, that led to this moment, to this event. We don't know. What if they were, now I don't think that they were, but what if they were doing things they shouldn't be doing, or they were not, maybe not no showing, but they were having a bad attitude showing up to work, or, who knows? So to me, I before I start, joining any kind of movement, I always remember that there's never a clear-cut good guy and bad guy, and so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we're going to create the Matt and Mark movement to where we don't go. We're against total walkouts, and we're also pro ice cream.
Yes, I am very pro ice cream. My son would agree, and yes. I use ice cream as a bargaining chip for a lot of things that I want him to do. Let me just say that. Yeah,
smart man.
It's a currency in my home. So yes, definitely, I would agree with that, especially during the summer months. And but all right, let's continue on with just a couple of more things here. Well, actually, you know what? I know you said you had a whole bunch of notes, so I don't want to let your notes that you took go unread or the effort you put into to doing that. So you go ahead. If you want to choose something that you want to discuss that happened in WWE over the last week, the floor is yours if you want to take that road. I just don't want to not utilize the effort that you put in for the show. So I guess for this one, I'll toss it to you.
Oh, Matt, you're being brave. Are you ready for this?
Oh, God. Should I have done this? Go ahead.
All right. Okay. I'll throw this one out there to you. Corbin. Corbin could be a great wrestler. He could be a great promoter's dream. But when you listen to his interviews, they're so scripted. He doesn't have the umph, the his in his interviews. They just seem so scripted. But with his body, his ring ability, he could be something. Even put a manager with him and build him up. But personally, I think that's a freaking waste. New Day. Look, I do not. How can I put this in a polite way? New Day is successful, and they have been around because they have been successful. And I understand from talking when I do try to reach out to a few of the guys, nobody has anything bad to say about these guys. They are the ultimate easy to work with. Whatever you throw at them, they can figure something out and make it that great. And I think sometimes we all jump on them harshly, and me being the main one. And they are great in-ring talents, and maybe we are, because they're being shoved on us so much, that we take that into a little bit too much, or whatever. And man, we had mentioned, what about the heel turn when it does happen with RK Bro? How do you think it's going to happen?
I'll answer your last question first. How does the heel turn happen? I think the smart money is on Orton turning heel for the 1800th time. That's the smart. But I'm going to go with, if I was booking this, I'm just going with what I think WWE is going to do. I think they're going to probably do the safe Randy Orton heel turn again. But I would book it where Riddle turns heel and just he becomes this guy that is realizing that he feels he was in the shadow of Orton, that he was the guy that was he couldn't breathe when Orton was around because he felt so suffocated by his presence. And all of you, I mean, like, there's a bunch of ways to go because we've seen the Orton heel turn so many times over his 20-year career. I mean, it works. He's great at being a heel, and Orton loves being a heel. That's well documented. But the more fun way to go is Riddle turning heel. And I think ultimately that would make him a bigger star. And I think most fans would be more interested in that road because we've never traveled that road yet. We've been down the Randy Orton heel turn road many times. There's a lot of tire tracks in that road. We've seen it. We've been there. It's fine. It's a fine road to go, but you know what you're going to get. So that before I get to your other point though about
and Riddle is a legit badass.
Yes,
Riddle is.
Yes, he is. That's also, and he's an excellent worker. I mean, the guy. He's so good in the ring. I mean, he's not Ric Flair or Ricky Steamboat yet, but he is a guy that he's got a endless gas tank. The guy's cardio, I mean, it's otherworldly. The guy's cardio, so props to him there. And I really have nothing bad to say in ring. On the microphone, he's got the natural stoner kind of vibe.
Getting it.
And that's fine, but I think he could turn it up a notch and just turn on the crowd and make it a way that's so unlikable that you just want to see Orton hit an RKO and just punt his head off. I think that's a much better way to do this once they finally drop the hammer on this team. And I think they will. Every tag team that has ever been created, for the most part, is always designed to fail, to create single stars, as most factions
Absolutely.
are. That's the whole point of them.
Absolutely.
So with New Day, going back to your final point, and I'll toss it to you, look, I believe that nobody has anything bad to say about those guys because they seem like genuinely nice guys, family men, all that, and that's great. And I do believe that as human beings, they are fine. They're really good human beings. And I believe everything you're saying, and I believe everybody that's telling you these things. But it's just the on-air stuff that it's beyond stale. It's like a moldy piece of bread. It's not even stale anymore. To me, it's just, I don't understand the need to continue to trudge these guys out there. I think it's the fans who, for whatever reason, continue to cheer for them. I mean, I blame the fans as much as I blame creative, because if the fans started booing it or just not reacting, I think WWE would have to force their hand into doing something about it. But people keep cheering them, and the kids and the girls keep, they hear that New Day music, and it's like a Pavlovian response. They just start, yay! It's like, no, stop! You're part of the reason this is still going on. So I would just love to see somebody turn from that group. I honestly think Xavier Woods could be a breakout star. Kofi Kingston, I think, has kind of had his time.
Yeah.
I think Xavier Woods would be a fun breakout heel if he wants to turn.
All right. My next point I wanted to bring up is watering down the brands. All right. If you're going to have two brands, now I'm not talking about the unification title, and I'm not downplaying that at all. But if you're going to have two brands, let's have two brands. You're trying to create two different promotions, typically, or somewhat, so you can have two different draws, two different cities you can go into. That's my opinion of what they should be doing. Now, I don't know what the hell they're doing. And maybe, I'm not that smart, but I want to know what your opinion is on the watering the brands down.
Well, I have been very vocal about this, that, at first I was getting super annoyed, and then week after week of them violating their own brand rules, which they do every time that there's a draft. I mean, let's be honest, they can't help themselves. Within weeks, there's somebody on another brand that shouldn't be there, and they sometimes they don't even address why. They're just there, and we're supposed to accept it. It was a big sticking point with me. And I think they just wore me down. Like, I think it was a war of attrition with people like me that actually care, and people like you that care about them trying, that should adhere to their own damn rules of having a brand split. It's like they want to have their cake and eat it too. They want a brand split when it's convenient, but when they need extra help on a brand that doesn't have that star power there that week, or somebody's out injured, they want to bring somebody over, and it's convenient for the story. Well, that's too damn bad. You either have a brand split or you don't. Don't tell me you have a brand split and then have people on the show that have no business being there. No, the announcers don't even say anything about the fact that, wait, they're from Raw. Why are they here? They don't even do that anymore. They're just there. We're supposed to not ask questions and accept it. It's gotten to that point because they tried the wild card rule. They tried the quarterly invitational. They tried all this nonsense, but they knew that if they did that, they'd have to eventually violate those rules because they wanted those people to come over more than 4 times a year, or not be strangle-held to a wild card rule that they knew they weren't going to be able to follow. Now they don't even bother, because they know if they put something into place that they're just going to have to violate that rule that is already violating the rule of having a draft. It's like a violation of a violation, and they don't even bother. They just say, hey, we have a brand split. LOL, kind of in quotes, we have a brand split. They don't. It's dead. Now, they're not going to have full integration, but they're bringing people over on a weekly basis that have no business being there, no explanations, and I hate it. I understand it provides sometimes better storylines, and I understand it provides better quality matches from a wrestling perspective. I understand that, and they are beholden to ratings and contracts that probably have rating provisions in them. I understand that from a business perspective. But as a fan that cares about this, because I understand the massive benefits of really making sure you are strict in your brand rules and making sure you follow them, that I am a huge proponent of actually doing that, because having two worlds of wrestling, it makes it allows your brain to go, wow, imagine if this person were to face this person. It allows you to create two separate worlds and create fantasy matchups and make it feel special, rather than all of a sudden, oh, Royal Rumble, it's Royal Rumble season, anybody can go anywhere. Oh, it's Survivor Series, it's the only time once a year that SmackDown and Raw go head-to-head, which is a bunch of nonsense. They have those special events in Saudi Arabia. There's WrestleMania. Like, it happens. I'm done. You go ahead.
Yeah. Look, yes. Okay. All right. One more thing I did want to bring up is, everybody's having a hard time finding employees now. My friends in the restaurant business are having a hard time getting employees. They're paying top wages, but they can't get employees. But the WWE has got a plethora of employees in one family, and people wonder why some people get away with something. But imagine this: if you had one family, that you had the world champion, the tag team champions, and the best upcoming young wrestler other than Braun Strowman, and please excuse me, I know I'm not mentioning a few NXT talents, but you get what I'm mentioning. They're all coming from one family. How the hell do you throw one out? You know what I mean? The main guy is your money maker. So they've kind of painted themselves into a corner.
Yeah, they have. I mean, they're eventually going to hit a brick wall, you'd imagine. You'd imagine that they will, if all their talent's coming from NXT, but all that talent is coming from independents and coming from, TNA, and also, some come back from AEW to WWE. To my knowledge, there's only been one person that has gone travel the road of AEW back to WWE, and that, of course, is Cody Rhodes. We haven't even mentioned Cody Rhodes at all this our entire conversation yet, and maybe I'll ask that next. But yeah, you're right. I think eventually they're going to hit a brick wall. I do believe that it won't look like they are. They won't tell you that they have, but the product will tell you. The quality of the product will tell you.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. And as far as Cody Rhodes, you were bringing Cody up. I have notoriously been on his bad side, and I came out a week ago and said that I didn't know what it was like to have a father like that, and you commented on that, and we've taken that road. But his sell for the Hell in the Cell match, I think, was a little overworded, and he purposely tried to use $17 words when $5 words would have been sufficient. But I think he's overcoming maybe his speech impediment and trying to use bigger words. And I wish he wouldn't do that, because it is what it is. I mean, it is. But I think he tried to do old school classic, and I think he did about as best as you can do, in my opinion. As I said, I just didn't like him using them $17 words that I had to Google.
It's so funny you say that, because to me, and I didn't watch AEW religiously, everybody knows that, but from what I understand, towards the end of his AEW run, people started to turn on him, and part of that reason, people believe, is because of his promos and the words he would use, that it would almost, and it wasn't meant to be, but it was almost perceived by people as kind of speaking down to them, and I know more than you, and I'm more well read, and I'm gonna tell you and somehow incorporate all the words I read in a book, when I could just say, be straightforward. But nah, I'll use, like you said, a $17 word when it could be a $3, $4 word, and I think he's got some of that vibe still in WWE, where I like Cody Rhodes. I recognize the talent. The speech impediment is what it is. It's distracting. It's just objectively distracting. No, I don't think it kills his character, nor do I think it totally destroys his promos, but it's distracting because it's not a common thing to have as an adult. It's just not. I mean, that's just a fact. It's not making fun of it. It's not anything, but I think his speech impediment does take a little bit away from his promos, because sometimes I'm focusing on that when I should be listening to the content of his promo. That's just sometimes how it works for me. But my point about the whole the using the bigger words when you don't have to is that it's, I think, going to eventually wear thin on fans, where that's what a lot of heels do, and he's not a heel right now. And coming out with the $80,000 suit and trying to that also doesn't help, because it's kind of like this guy that is he's got a bunch of money and
non-relatable.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. He's not. It's weird because he's trying to be relatable, and fans recognize his talent.
Yep.
And they understand his dad, which I would actually stop talking about his dad. We all know Dusty, but I think the more you mention him, the more that that Cody's going to not be able to carve his own path. I would just stop with the Dusty references, stop talking about it.
Is he pricing himself out of the market?
Yeah. It could be. Yeah. I mean, Dusty Rhodes is one of the greatest of all time. You don't want it. That's the thing that people don't realize is, just like with Charlotte Flair, who you have this person, this legend of the business. That's your father that gets you into the business, and great. That's the massive advantage, is they get you into the business. But the problem is, the even bigger problem that may not be enough to balance out the fact that you were able to get into the business much easier, is that people are going to compare you to that person. People are going to compare you forever to that legend in the business, fairly or unfairly. It's going to happen. With Charlotte, I think she still sometimes has the Ric Flair stench to her, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but she's forever going to be compared to Ric Flair. Same with Cody. He will forever be compared to his father, Dusty. And so that's the bad side, is that people are going to look at you and go, but is he as good as his dad? And that's not a good thing, I don't think, if you're comparing yourself to that level of a talent. But my final point on Cody, I'll toss it back to you for anything else, is, Cody, I think at times, and whether he knows it or not, he's maybe not be self-aware, but the big words he uses, he's trying to sound intelligent, but I think it comes off as, I'm going to use big words to impress you. It's like, no, dude, like, stop. Just use plain language and stop trying to act like you're more intelligent than you are by coming up with this like word bank and walking around with a thesaurus. And I'd imagine that's what he does in his show or before his promo. He sees the promo that creative, writes for him, and he's like, well, what can I substitute this word for a more intelligent word? It's like he's Googling it before the match. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you hit it. And look, man, he has to remember, he's the grandson of a plumber.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember, Dusty, all the great promos, it was because he was digging ditches, and he was the every man's man, and even when they rebranded him, they even freaking, they used that freaking reference. He was the every man's man kind of person. But Cody, I see as a wannabe kind of Ric Flair. I don't want to talk bad about Cody. I really want him to succeed, and he is very held on to his creative rights and his song and his interest music. And everything. He is held on to his creative rights, and he's holding on to. He's building his brand. And maybe I am too old to understand it. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not looking past that. Maybe I'm too old to understand what he's going after. But I'm a classic wrestling fan. And if to tell you the truth, Matt, I think Charlotte's done better at carrying on the legacy than Dustin so far.
Oh yeah.
In my opinion.
Oh, no doubt. I mean, the report card, if you put them side by side, I think Charlotte Flair is leaps and bounds ahead of them. And, look, I think that Cody Rhodes is a guy that he's almost the antithesis of his, of Dusty, because like you said, he's the everyman's man. He's the common man. A lot of people obviously can relate with the common man, common woman, the person that you see yourself
I
in.
don't know, Matt. I don't own a suit like he does, though.
No, it doesn't. He always have, sometimes he has I feel like he's wearing a pocket watch half the time. Like, who the hell is wearing? Who the F is wearing a pocket watch? Stop. I mean, honestly, he's the antithesis of what his father was built on, which is the common man. He's the opposite of that right now in some respects. So I don't know. Again, Cody Rhodes, excellent talent. He's a smart guy. He's very good in the ring. I have nothing bad to say about that. It's just his character, I think, is in a place that he doesn't realize it's in, where it's just it's heelish when it doesn't want it to be. So I guess if he wants to turn heel, boy, that'd be pretty easy to do. I mean, I
gotta be. That's gotta be his future, right?
I would imagine, although he's had his mission statement of trying to become WWE World Champion, which he, has said his father never did, which is kind of not true and true at the same time. I'm sure you know the dusty history about world titles. But I don't think that, you have a mission statement like that and you have one champion of right now with Roman Reigns being unified champion, right? I would imagine they're going to keep him babyface until he eventually has that matchup. I hope. I don't know if he's going to be the one to take it off Roman. He could be being groomed to do that. I don't know.
I'm afraid that you might be right there, Matt. And you were talking about everybody thought that Hulk Hogan was the first person to slam Andre the Giant. Mm-hmm. That's not true either. Mm-hmm. So. We'll see how this works out in the future. Exactly.
So, did you have anything else in those notes that you want to discuss before we wrap things up?
Man, I think that we have covered everything other than, can I do a couple personal
little
things? I want to say get well to DJ Kuzman. Definitely go through the rehab, but I've gone through rehab. And don't cuss them too bad because they are going to end up being your friends. I absolutely refuse to use the word premium programming. It is pay-per-view for me. I'm sticking with my history. And other than that, my friend, I want to say to the farmer, my friend, an ex-employee and co-worker, Matt Gross, chill out on the peppers, man. Chill out. You're going to burn yourself up. You're going to burn. What do you do? You burn your esophagus up when you eat these peppers like that, man. You can't do that, brother. But I love you. Other than that, man, I'm done, and I very, very much appreciate this time, and Mullet Manor Studio will be developed over the next few weeks, and we'll be coming back stronger than ever.
Awesome. Well, it's that to me is it's important, and guys, maybe we'll set up a GoFundMe for him, like a Mullet Manor podcast studio or something. But that's very cool. We will be definitely in touch again. I always enjoy our conversations because it's I got to say, and I'm not saying you're old. I'm not saying that.
I'm old. No, it's okay. It's okay.
No,
it's okay.
I'm only about 20 years, younger than you. I'm not far away. So, I mean, to call you old would be, referendum on myself. I'm actually not afraid of being called old. Some people, for whatever reason, when you get older, I'm just saying, I'm not saying you, but just as a whole, I think society is afraid of aging. It's like they're looking at age as some kind of disease, when in reality, do you know what I mean though? Like when you get older, I don't know. So
I enjoy. Look, I'm 56 years old, but I had spent 35, close to 40 years in the bar business. So I consider that like dog years. So actually, I'm 197 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And that's just what I'm going to go by. But I embrace every day. I live Mullet Manor. I live on a beautiful retirement home. Not a big home, nothing fancy, but the whole back of my house is glass, and it looks out over a small little lake, too small to be a lake, too big to be a pond. And that's what we call Mullet Manor. And every day I'm grateful to the good Lord that I'm breathing, and I'm so happy to be able to communicate with some of these wrestling fans out here and find people like-minded like myself and enjoy conversation, intelligent talk. And I never get too old for this, my friend.
Well, you're giving me hope, because when I'm 60 in a couple of decades, I hope I'm still like where you are in terms of just having a passion for the business, even though it evolves and changes, and everybody says, oh, it's not like when I grew up, and I'll be saying the same thing. Like, I mean, everybody has their own standard of when they grew up, it was the best wrestling. It's just, I think part nostalgia, maybe there's some truth to it. But my point is, I hope that, when I'm at that age, maybe this podcast will still exist. I hope it does, but I'll still be doing this, and I'll still have a passion for it. And hey, if you're still around, you'll be 80-ish, I'll be 60. That'd be a hell of a conversation. I mean, I don't know. That would be an interesting conversation.
We'll start us a show, Wrestling with the Truth, hosted by Memphis Mark, and we'll do history. Eventually, one of these days. But I tell you what, Matt, it's appreciative on my age group that there are some people like you in your age group, and you've got some great fans out there and other people that comment that actually appreciate the history, where it came from, because everything that they're doing now has somewhat of a root of what I saw when I was a kid. So everything, it's kind of like bell-bottom jeans. When I wore bell-bottom jeans when I was young, and they went out of style, my mother cut them to straight leg jeans. If I had them bell-bottom jeans today, Matt, I would be a rich man, sir. So you don't forget your past and embrace your future.
I like that. That's a good way to end this. Positive and uplifting, and I think we need a lot of that today, which is in short supply. Let me just say that, as you know, it's crazy. So I really appreciate it, Mark. I would definitely be talking to you soon. We'll have to get together at some point in the near future for another round of our week in review, and I'm sure I'll be looking forward to it, and the listeners will be as well. So I really appreciate you coming on tonight.
Matt, I enjoyed this tremendously, and I'll be talking to you again, and I've got some few things working that I want to throw at you, and I know you got a hell of a job tonight editing and cutting out my mishaps, but I thank you.
No, thank you, and maybe I'll hear from you in the mailbag if you throw a voicemail in there. So.
Yeah, right. Like I'm not going.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying that as if it's an if. Yeah, I know. I know. All right. Well, thanks so much, buddy. I'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Everybody have a great night. And remember to spay and neuter. I'm out.
There it is. Good night, Mark.
Thanks for listening to the WWE Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss a show, or head to WWEpodcast.com. And for all of these shows ad-free, head over to patreon.com/WWE Podcast. Until then, we'll see you next time.